Real people, this is Queen Ari. I want to get on here to talk about whole health. As many of you know, if you have been following me, I started talking about whole health and really more so into the beginning of 2018. And I also previously came out with my book, The Loud Secret, in 2016. But this book, I'm telling you guys, is so relevant for now. And so I wanted to go ahead and begin to discuss the importance of healing and deliverance, the importance of making sure that if you've gone through any type of traumatic situation, if you have literally faced something that you still think about to this day and it affects you the same way, it's time to be healed. And I wanted to more specifically talk about the importance of getting that resolved before getting into a relationship. Listen, I'm going to be transparent with you all today, and this is how we're going to grow. This is how in life we can get better. When we go through something and God delivers us, He heals us, then we can use what we've been through as a testimony. And I'm using my story as a testimony. It is not to condemn anyone. It's not to make anybody ashamed, but it's literally to say, I was at this place, but God delivered me. He healed me. He brought me through so that I can be a light for you. And so when we talk about The Loud Secret, as many of you know, it's about my journey, my testimony of dealing with sexual abuse when I was a little kid, 4 or 5 years old, little kid, and how I had to really go through a process of rediscovering who I was as I grew up. I had to really begin to find my voice because of the detriment, because of the incident that happened, and it caused so much confusion. It caused mental distress, and I had to learn to grow through it and then allow God to heal me to be where I am today. And so in the midst of going through what I went through, there was definitely a process. And I had to learn this, you guys, because when I'm talking about relationships, it's critical that if you've been through any type of trauma, that you go through that healing process, because it's gonna affect your relationships. It will affect your relationships. It's not if, or maybe, no, it will affect your relationships. And sometimes we go through life and we'll connect with people, and we a lot of times begin to point the finger at them. And then, lo and behold, we see a pattern that's happening. And we're like, wait, this seems familiar. Okay, 2 people, 3 people. And you're like, something's off. And I want to let you know that we have to be willing to look in the mirror and point the finger back at ourselves. It's not a self-condemning type of point, but it's a, hey, God, help me, heal me, because I want to be better. And we have to be at that place because it is so critical in order to have functional, healthy relationships. This is not only, I'm more so going to be talking about, of course, like romantic relationships, but this is platonic relationships as well. This is relationships with your friends, career relationships, anything like that. We have to be willing to heal because it will bleed off. We can so-called, within the practice, I'm, going to be a mental health therapist. I'm a mental health therapist. And so in training, and during the studies or through the studies, we talk about certain things, how people can get triggered. You can get triggered from a situation or an incident, and that is a huge indication that something is not healed. Because when you begin to get triggered and you react the same way you did back then, it's allowing you to know that something is still off. So when we go through things in life, we should still be able to think about the situation in order to encourage somebody else, in order to, remind ourselves of what God has brought us through. But we shouldn't get stuck there when we think about it, or we shouldn't go from 0 to 100 when someone triggers us and then they're scared, like what's going on and this and that. And so it's critical, you guys, and just part of, again, my testimony. Because of what I went through, I did not tell anyone for over 20 years what happened to me. And because of it, I held a lot of secrecy on the inside of me. And if anybody knows about holding secrecy, holding a secret on the inside of them for that many years, it is tormenting. It is tormenting because you're allowing the enemy to blackmail you. You're allowing yourself to blackmail you. You're allowing yourself to walk around with guilt and shame. And then when you attempt to go into a relationship, a romantic relationship with somebody, you begin to bleed on that other person. You begin to literally put up a blockade or a wall because you're not healed and you think they're going to hurt you. And it's unfortunate because a lot of us have experienced, dating, being in a relationship, possibly even engaged or married to people that were really, really good people, but they didn't have the grace. They did not have the grace in order to handle that brokenness. And it's not saying that they should have to, but it's saying that you have to be careful who you connect with, because some people are not going to be able to handle that type of brokenness. Some people don't know how to pray for a certain individual or say, hey, go seek counseling. I think there's something that's off, and be patient with you and have grace for you. Some people will just leave. And then of course once they leave, that adds another layer of hurt, and now it's like an onion. It has to be unpeeled so that you can be healed. And so, as I talked about, transparency is important because in order for anything to be healed, it must be revealed. So I'm being transparent. So within relationships, I found myself all too often going in and, number one, having major trust issues because, number one, with the abuse happening so young, I made up in my mind that I wasn't going to be protected that young. God had to really heal me and to remove those lies. It took a lot, but I'm free. I'm free. And so going into relationships, I had huge trust issues. Immediately going in, with all of these walls and saying to myself, why would this person be faithful? And that was compounded from not only the sexual abuse, but being cheated on by my first boyfriend at a tender teenager, age. And so with those experiences that happened, I had all of these, excuses, and I was blaming so many people about what happened to me. And when I would go into the situation, I would not give the other person a chance. The trust issues, number one, that's a huge red flag. If you go into a brand new situation and everything that the person does, you don't trust them. You're thinking, oh, well, this is too good to be true. That is an indication that something needs to be healed. So let me say this. It is okay, of course, to allow somebody to earn your trust, but you don't go immediately in with bows up ready to fight saying, where were you, this and that, you didn't answer your phone, why did you look at this person that way? And because that will push somebody away. And I'm sharing this stuff because I know it's going to help somebody. This is for people that have that, like I said, dating relationships. You could even be married now and you're doing this and you're trying to figure out, where is this coming from? It can come from traumatic situations. It doesn't have to be sexual molestation. It doesn't have to be sexual abuse, anything like that. It could be a previous divorce, or it could be physical abuse that happened when you were younger. Maybe you got abused by, physically abused by your close family member or something like that, and it's causing you to not trust anybody. I want to let you know that you can be healed, and that is not normal to be in a relationship and constantly blaming the other person, saying, telling them that they're doing this and they're doing that. You have to learn how to trust people. And for myself, I literally had to go back to God. I had to come to the understanding. I said, Father, listen, if you're going to allow me to connect with somebody else, I have to trust you enough to lead me, to guide me, to give me the spirit of discernment where I have peace in this relationship, where I have peace within this situation. You have to get to that point, because when you come in and you have all these trust issues, you literally are living in unrest. You don't have peace. And we understand that that is not God. God is a God of peace, not of torment and chaos. Fear is what causes torment. And that is another huge underlying spirit or situation that I had to overcome in order to be whole. So not only did the abuse cause trust issues, but that fear was there. Well, what if this person does this? Like my ex-boyfriend did. What if this person does that and this happens? That is all fear. And those are all things that have to be healed when it comes to a relationship. Some things are practical, some things are deeper, but this is necessary for now, because like I mentioned yesterday, this is the time to be walking in whole health, spirit, soul, and body. We have to understand that spirit, soul, body, God wants us to prosper. 3 John 1 and 2, it talks about that. And we have to have a balance. It's not about being perfect, but it's about being a better version of ourselves. Yes, I talk about this a lot because this is my ministry. This is what God wants me to come forth and to share with people, to be a light and to let people know that with His love, with who He is, He can allow you to be at that whole state. He will lead you to the counselor that you need. He'll lead you to the life coach or the person, whatever process you need to go through, He will lead you to that. And of course, I talk about that in my book, The Loud Secret, but we have to be willing to grow through our processes. And so there were, definitely trust issues that I had with when it came to relationships, and it affected all of them, every single one of them. And there was a common denominator after each breakup, and it was me. And not only was it me, but I was allowing the enemy to trespass within it because I was not dealing with certain inner me's. And not only that, but like I said, the spirit of fear. I had to pretty much bind that to begin to be free, to begin to see, hey, that was of the past. That's not now. And there's another important thing that we must know. Our brains, when we go through a traumatic situation, when we constantly think about it, it could have been 10 years ago, but if you're thinking about it right now and you're feeling those same emotions that you felt when the incident happened, your brain is thinking, your body is literally thinking that it's happening now. It's just the way that we're created. It's the way that we're set up. And this is why it's so important to monitor, to know what you're thinking. It's another reason why I always say, remember to renew your mind. It is a gold mine. We'll talk about that on another episode, because the mind is definitely the foundation or the ground where a lot of things are created. So, but we'll talk about that, like I said, another day. So within relationships, there were trust issues because of the abuse, because of the traumatic thing that happened to me. The second thing is what goes with trust issues is self-esteem or confidence issues. And this is the thing. It doesn't matter how beautiful a person is, how pretty, intelligent, how much money they have, regardless of what it is. If a person is broken on the inside, if their soul is broken, something needs to be restored, guess what? It's going to eventually show. It may not show on the outside completely, but when you attempt to get into a romantic relationship, that stuff starts coming out. And like I kind of mentioned before, when you have self-esteem issues or self-confidence issues, when you attempt to connect with someone, number one, you're going to be always settling because you're not viewing life or selecting people based off of what you should have. A lot of times when people are broken, they're selecting people based off of their hurt level or where they're at within the process of being broken. And it's, like I said, it's not a dagger to throw at the people saying that they're bad people, but a lot of times we date below what we're supposed to. And then we get upset when certain things don't work, but we have to deal with self-esteem issues, low, confidence issues, any type of self-confidence issues. You have to deal with that. And what I had to do literally was I had to allow God to honestly retell me, or to remind me of my identity, to remind me that he gives me value. I mentioned this analogy before, this example before. A $20 bill does not lose its value if it is, you squeeze it, you throw it, you step on it. You can open it up again, you could possibly iron it, take it to the store, and it's still a $20 bill. God had to remind me, no matter what you go through in life, your value does not change. He said, because I have given you your value. And he had to remind me that just because abuse happened, just because whatever situation happened, that does not take away the queen that he's created me to be, the royal person that he's created me to be. He really had to begin to instill that in me, and then my perspective changed. The people that I decided to date, how they look, not only physically, but spiritually, emotionally, the ones I decided to date, it started to look different because I was starting to be different. And I also talk about that. I have a book called Singles Let's Deliberate, and it talks about practical things as well in that book. And it's critical for us to understand this, you guys. A lot of those self-esteem issues, yes, they are tied to traumatic situations, but we can be delivered and healed from. But we have to be willing to do the work so that we can have who God wants us to have. Again, it is not about being perfect. It is not about, 1,000 people coming to talk to you. You say, no, you're not good enough. No, don't do that. That right. Something's wrong. You're pushing away 1,000 people. But it's about learning what's best for you. And I personally did not know what was best for me until I allowed God to heal me, to take me through that process, you guys. And so it's critical, and it's just so amazing, like how much is tied into or can be connected to if a person is physically abused or something like that, and then it affects everything or affects a lot of situations within their life. It's time to be real. It's time to stop sweeping things under the rug, because your life is worth it. You have to understand that your life is worth it. And I feel led to say this. I don't know kind of where this is coming from, but I feel led to say this. And I believe that there are some men that have been molested as well. Men who have been definitely done wrong behind closed doors. And you are literally living with a secret, and it is tearing you up, and you find yourself really in a broken state constantly. And you have a mask, and you're going through life like everything is okay. But I want to let you know that you're going to be okay. I just pray and declare and decree right now that as you listen to this, as you're looking at this, that something is being healed on the inside of you, that you're going to be willing to share what happened to you. It's not about getting a mic and telling the world, but it's about being okay to possibly go to a counselor or go to somebody that you trust. You could possibly be married and your wife have no idea why you act a certain way and you snap at the drop of a hat, but then you turn around and say, forgive me so quick. This is a time for one of your greatest breakthroughs. This is your time for you to be healed on a greater level. Go forth and allow God to heal you. Again, in order for something to be healed, it has to be revealed. And so getting back to what I'm talking about. So I think it's vital, of course, to deal with those trust issues. Number 2, deal with self-esteem, low self-confidence, anything like that. Deal with those issues so that you can be prepared to function as a wife or a husband, or as that mate, that partner that God has called you to be, period. And so those 2 things. And then I'll also say that their communication, my communication, oh my goodness, was kind of terrible. And another reason why is, of course, it was connected to the abuse that happened. But when I would attempt to communicate with my partner, communicate with the person that I was dating with, it wouldn't come out right. A lot of times there was fear attached to, well, what if this person thinks this or thinks that, if I say this or say that. But then there was another part in me, before I had gone through the healing process, there was another part in me that was pretty much masking my voice. It was causing me to not release or be who God created me to be. So while I was in dating situations or relationships, I just wasn't myself. And I wasn't able to give my complete self because I was so broken. I was so broken and had to go through that healing process. And I was so used of, like I said, holding on to a secret for over 20 years that my communication, at times it sucked. Excuse me for using that word, but it just wasn't effective. A lot of the times I didn't know how to relay what I was feeling, or to explain to a person, hey, I'm feeling this way and this is why. And it was because I had not dealt with me. I had not dealt with the things that God wanted me to deal with. So that was compromised. And communication is huge, you guys, in relationships. If you don't have communication, your situation may not work, period. You have to communicate. And it's, again, like I said, it's not about being perfect, but it's about literally being conscious of what you can do to have a better relationship, to have a better situation. And then so you could pay attention and say, wow, I've been seeing these patterns in my dating situation or in my marriage. I've been seeing these patterns. I need to deal with me. This is why I'm sharing this stuff with you all, so that you can deal with you, because it's time. And so, like I said, communication was definitely effective. And God really, really, really had to help me through my process. And as I allowed God's love in, as I allowed him, he's such a gentleman. He did not force me to go through my healing process until I was ready. And when I was ready, then I listened. Then I was willing to do what was necessary. I was willing to be uncomfortable. And I was willing to say, hey, I'm tired of these breakups. And for no good reason. Like, some of these people are really good people, and something has to change. And so with that said, I began to go on my journey to be healed. And, and then at that point, I began to attract more whole people. I really began to be able to have relationships with people and just friendships with people where I could communicate and be my authentic self. And I could, and you have to understand this, when you're your authentic self, you begin to attract what you need. A lot of times we are hiding who we are because of fear, because of abuse, because of whatever it is. And then we don't end up getting what we need. And so you have to know that someone's out there looking for the authentic you. Somebody is literally praying for who you are. And you have to be okay with being that person. But again, in order to be that person, you have to go through your healing process. And don't be overwhelmed, you guys. Like I said, this was a process. It didn't happen overnight. It took a while for me to say, okay. It took me, writing books and doing blogs and all types of stuff, going to counseling and all this stuff. And I still have a counselor. Like I said, I'm a therapist in training, but I still have a counselor that I go through, because I understand maintaining your deliverance, maintaining what God has given you, keeping it, being a good steward over your healing, over your deliverance. After God heals you or delivers you, you don't go back to that same lifestyle. No, you have to literally do things that's going to promote, that's going to help, that's going to encourage your healing and your advancement, your elevation. And so that's huge, that's huge, that's huge, that's huge. But those processes I had to pretty much go through for relationships that I wanted to share with you all. And I believe that these are going to help you. And there's one other quick thing that I'll say. In the midst of having trust issues, the low self-esteem issues that I had to overcome and deal with, the communication issues, also along with communication, I became a runner. When certain things, I didn't want to talk about certain things, or a dating situation was just not for me, I would just kind of at times disappear. Or they would say one thing to me and I would get upset, and I'm like, oh, never talking to you again. That's not normal. That's not normal. And sometimes people connect that with, kind of a sense of, I know who I am, and they shouldn't do this or do that, and this is why I left. No, if you're always leaving at the first time, whenever somebody does something the first time and you're like, I'm not giving them another chance, you gotta dig on the inside to see what's going on, because that's what you call a runner. A person that constantly runs from everything. You don't want to face your fears. You don't want to face conflict. And you have to understand, within a relationship, you're going to have some conflict. Some conflict is healthy, because now I remember we had discussions about this within one of my courses, but conflict is healthy because a lot of times it lets you know, of course, something's off. And then you could say, with that other person or group, what's off? Let's talk about this so that we can fix it, we can resolve it, and then the conflict leaves. So you can't run at every sign of conflict. You got to be willing to face it. And before healing, before allowing God to really deal with me, I did not do that. I would run from the situations, be done, and that was it. I didn't care. And so I just, wanted to share these with you guys. And of course, I'm going to come back and we're going to do more videos. We're just going to talk about, have more discussions. But this is critical because I do sense that God is developing. He is developing and connecting people together, purpose partners together. And he wants us to be healed. He wants us to be delivered, because there's some things that he wants us to do together as a unit. God is going to be allowing people more as a unit to go forth with what he's created them to do. But it requires our participation. It requires our obedience to be healed, to be delivered, to allow God to flow through us like he's supposed to. So, you guys, I just believe that this is going to bless some people, because it's time to be transparent. I want you guys to leave comments. I want you guys to share your testimony. I want, that's what I want you guys to do. I feel led to do this. As you listen to this, I want you guys to share your testimony with at least one person. Like I said, your testimony is not going to be my testimony. It's not going to be exactly the same, because we're different people. But whatever God brought you out of, or whatever he's doing for you, I want you to share your testimony with somebody else. Of course, you may have to go through your healing process, but God has brought you out of something. And the reason I'm saying this is because as you begin to share a testimony with somebody else, you're going to get comfortable with releasing. You're going to get comfortable in saying, wow, that felt good to release. And then God can deal with what needs to be dealt with that's affecting your relationships, that's harming them and causing breakups, or causing you to, like I said, go from 0 to 100, which is not normal. That's causing you to be a runner. That's causing you to have communication issue, low self-esteem. All that's not normal. Okay. It's things that we go through as a human being, but we don't stay there. We heal and we grow and get better. So you guys, I pray that this episode blessed your life. And of course, this content is coming from the Bible in my book, The Loud Secret. And so I do want you guys to go ahead and grab this book, and it is available on my website and on Amazon. My website is www.ericadhomes.com. Go ahead, grab that, or you can go on Amazon and look up the book, The Loud Secret. All right, you guys, stay encouraged and remember to renew your mind. It is the gold mine. Love y'all.